We are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. So if you're not aware by now, a lot of these old school truthers that had their channels banned during the C-19 days, there was a time where there was a great purge of these channels that were talking against the C-19 jab, and I know you can call it the vaccine now, but I don't know, I'm still a little suspicious calling it anything else but the jab. But we had really good news yesterday. One of my favorite channels has returned a call for an uprising. But it's not just a call for an uprising. Other channels like Richie from Boston has had channels restored. Other truthers that were banned are getting their channels back. But is this really good news, or is this a Trojan horse by YouTube? Now, that's not me saying that, but this is what Call had to say yesterday in his video.
My YouTube channel has been reinstated. Oh! Now, I know some of you will celebrate and be thrilled with this news. Me, personally, I'm very suspicious about it. I am very not the type of person to be optimistic, even when good things happen. I'm always expecting something else or thinking, what's the catch? Because there's got to be a catch with how they have censored and removed so many channels, and now they're bringing them back. And of course, I believe that this will somehow tie into a digital ID. And of course, I also believe that being anonymous online, like I am, is something that they are going to try and end. So what they're doing here makes little to no sense. And I will show you just how little sense this makes based on the appeal process, based on screen grabs that I've had for the last couple of days, which will show you that it doesn't make any sense that my channel is suddenly back on YouTube. But some of you might know I've never left. I've never actually been gone. I've gone through over 80 or 88, I believe is the number of channels since I've been on the platform. I'm still here. I have a channel called Hive Mind Nation where I've broken down the Charlie Kirk psyop.
So I'm not going to go ahead and play the whole clip. I'll go ahead and link his channel below so you can check out the video. But I just wanted to show that video to prove that even he's saying he's not optimistic. He's not happy that his channel has returned. They're doing this for a reason. It's not like suddenly YouTube has adopted free speech. We know this because they are still heavily deleting comments. They delete my own comments on my own channel. I'll pin a comment and I'll see it deleted and I'll have to repin another comment. But here's the weird thing about that. So let's say you delete your comment. YouTube says, well, since you delete your comments, we're going to go ahead and completely remove it out of our system. But if YouTube itself deletes your comment, like their AI program, or if somebody's monitoring your channel or your comment, they will keep your comment in their internal system. So you might think it's gone. You might think it's not there anymore for it to be pulled. But yes, your comment is still in YouTube's internal system, the one that they deleted. But at the end of the day, I am not a stoop. It doesn't matter if you delete your comments or YouTube deletes your comments. It's still going to be in their database regardless. So the question happens to be, why are all these channels that were previously banned returning? And my thing happens to be, if you want the answer, just look at the timing of other events that are currently taking place. Just take a look at what's currently happening over in places like the United Kingdom and Vietnam. You will lose your money, you'll lose your bank accounts, you will not be able to work unless you get the required digital ID. And it's hard to build a database on people. It's hard to know what people are saying and talking about if you keep them hidden in the shadows. So if you bring them out and you allow them to say what you want, whatever they want to say, then it's easier to build a profile. Yes, Call has had other channels. He has other channels. But with them now returning his older channel back, it now makes it seem like YouTube is now a lot more lenient on what you can say. They are now trying to be a lot more trustworthy. See, we returned your channel, so that's just proof you can say whatever you want. You can say you do not like the jab. You can say that you'll never get the jab because of XYZ reasons. You can say you do not trust certain countries, and we will not ban you. But all the while, again, a profile is being built on you and will be used against you once that digital ID rolls around. And saying the wrong thing or speaking out against the narrative, spreading misinformation will definitely be like being put on a no-fly list, but on steroids, 100 times on steroids. You'll be restricted from accessing a lot of things because you do not agree with the narrative and you're spreading misinformation. This is what's currently happening in China, and you might be saying, well, that's China. It wouldn't happen in the United States or the United Kingdom. But China, United States, United Kingdom, all these countries that might look like enemies and different on TV are all saying the same exact thing at the World Economic Forum.
Broke, they got deleted. In China, tens of thousands of young people are suddenly homeless, not because of money, but because the system erased them.
Imagine a society where everything you do, everything you say, and everything you buy is controlled and evaluated by the authorities. This is what the Chinese Communist Party calls social credit.
By using the mechanism of social credit, we'll be able to establish a blacklist of people and create a system of punishment that will be based on a scientific theory. These punishments will serve as a whip to rebuild moral values. Our society needs it.
The country's social credit system decides who's trustworthy. But if you're blacklisted, it's game over. Your WeChat Pay stops working, you can't receive your salary, can't buy food, can't even book a train ticket. It's like being alive, but digitally. Many are now sleeping in the streets, cut off from everything. Jobs, housing, even communication. All because one app, one algorithm decided they don't belong.
It's not science fiction. In China, it's a reality.
Then there's the public shaming. Photo galleries of blacklisted citizens. There's even an app that shows who around you is in debt.
They're not criminals. They didn't steal, cheat, or harm anyone. They just fell too low on a score and vanished from the digital world. Critics say it's a glimpse into the future, where technology doesn't just track your life, it controls it. So ask yourself, if your entire life depended on your digital reputation, how long before you get deleted?
And what's even more disturbing is the fact that, and I pointed this out on my video yesterday on Seconds of Horror, is that, and it's not just about TikTok, because some people hear the words TikTok and they lose their minds. Yes, TikTok is definitely a weapon. TikTok is MK Ultra on steroids. But all these social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's TikTok, Instagram Reels, and so forth, they are allowing AI to edit people's videos. So people are finding anomalies in their videos. And not just that, they are finding that what they see when they upload the video looks different than when they were recording. They look different, they appear different, they're doing different things than what they had recorded. And the reason why I mentioned TikTok heavily yesterday was because I already had spoken about YouTube doing this, and YouTube actually admitted to doing this. And now we're getting to a point where people are noticing that the AI is making them, again, do things that they know they did not do. Like, for example, they'll show a video where they're standing, but the final version of the video, when it's uploaded, because the AI took over, will show them sitting at a table. And what if we get to a point where the AI shows them doing something bad, and now they're caught in a bad situation, and millions of people are seeing this? You get reported doing whatever the AI made it look like you were doing, and how are you going to prove that it was not you and it was actually the AI creating a new scene, unbeknownst to you? And that is scary. And I said, not even somebody like myself is safe, somebody that doesn't even show their face on YouTube, because my own voice could be made to promote anything, push any agenda through the use of AI. Even faceless channels are not safe. And it's going to come to a point where if you want to be on YouTube, you will have to show your face. And the question does come up time to time, why don't I show my face? And like I said in responding to those comments, I did make a promise to my wife when I made this YouTube channel. I would be discreet as possible because we do have a daughter. I do know some truthers out there do show their faces and they have families, but whatever makes my family comfortable at the end of the day. But like I said, in time, that's no longer going to matter. It will be a requirement for us faceless channels to now show our faces if we want to go ahead and continue having a channel on YouTube. And I see that happening in about 2 to 3 years from now, because it's all about building a profile. Biometrics and data are going to be very important to your face, to your voice, to what you say, what you promote, will all be used for your digital ID. And it's not just the digital ID, there will be other things. I know I'm probably missing something, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Is that what we're seeing with people coming back, being able to speak their minds and so forth, we're looking at the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is coming in. So I do agree with Call. Seeing something like this is not something to be optimistic about. I mean, all this time they were opposing free speech, but now when we're getting closer and closer to the 2030 agenda, the digital ID, Palantir building profiles on people, Oracle, the Oracle man taking over TikTok, and so forth, now all of a sudden they are pro, you can say what you want. I'm not buying it. And I'm not saying don't say this, don't say that. All I'm saying is be smart, be very careful, because we are definitely in very deceptive times. More so than ever, I should say, because I can't really name a time where massive deception was not happening. So how would they even bring the digital ID to the United States? Well, I mean, one way I can think about is through the way of a false flag. But in other news, while people are really focused on this peace deal between Israel and Palestine, I mean, we're already getting news coming out as of today, and this is coming from the Times of Israel. Israel receives 4 hostages' bodies from Red Cross, demands Hamas hand over the other 24. So they are basically saying that Hamas is not keeping up their end of the peace deal until they get all the bodies. Continue to read the article. It says, Israel on Monday received caskets holding what Hamas said were the bodies of 4 slain hostages from Gaza, as it accused Hamas of failing to stand by the commitments it agreed to under the ceasefire by not releasing all the bodies it was holding. So yeah, that didn't really last very long. But while we are all focused on this, there's actually something brewing in the background, and this article was published today, October 13th, and this is coming from the Homeland Security website. And this article is titled, Al-Qaeda's renewed threat shows international terrorism has come home. Oh yeah, supposedly Al-Qaeda is now back again, causing threats within the United States, if you have not heard. Continue to read the article. It says, in light of our new military emphasis on lethality and domestic security over global partnerships, perhaps we should pay attention to the threat posed by Al-Qaeda within our national boundaries. Emerging terror threats posed by Al-Qaeda have been ignored, even though we have repeatedly been warned that there are over 1,000 operatives on American soil awaiting orders to hit Americans where they live, work, play, and pray. The attacks will be multiple synchronized and may capitalize on a natural disaster. What does that mean? That sounds awfully specific, capitalizing on a natural disaster. But anyway, this article from the Homeland Security website continues to say, international terrorism has come home. Instead of fearing one another, we ought to be laser focused on the adversaries who hate Americans, and we ought to be preparing to save ourselves at least as much as they are planning our demise. Al-Qaeda does not distinguish between Democrats or Republicans. To them, we are simply Americans, and that is how we ought to be thinking about ourselves as we prepare for the threat they pose. So as you can see, based on, again, this Homeland Security website, it definitely seems like a narrative is being built. The article continues to say, historically, we have pushed out so that we could prevent having to deal with external threats to our civilians. If we are not going to continue to monitor, prioritize, keeping threats at bay, then we need to warn, inform, and prepare of civilian population about the threat posed by international terrorists in our midst. This part of the article is very telling to me that something is indeed in the works, and I've said before, we are hearing and seeing a lot about 9/11 in news and media lately. But the article goes on to say, before 9/11, if someone told you that terrorists armed with box cutters were going to take over planes and crash them into the World Trade Center, would you have believed it? We are now in the same situation. We are trying to warn you that international terrorists are planning a multi-city attack on civilians and first responders on the homeland. There is no excuse for our security and defense community to be strategically surprised again, but they may be. So we are talking directly to civilians and working from the ground up to be aware, prepare, and talk to your neighbors. I'm telling you, something is up, and it has all the smells of a false flag. They even want to remind you that back in December of 2023, Al-Qaeda released a video titled, What America and the West Do Not Expect, as they're part of a series instructing lone wolf individuals to carry out attacks. There are at least 5 common elements that Al-Qaeda will use when planning. 1. Soft targets. Densely populated areas like concerts and sporting events. Attackers will pass away for their cause. This is a mentality law enforcement have experienced in large scale on the home front. Homeland threat. Chaos. We've been hearing that word a lot too. Ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. And a false sense of security. I mean, again, look at everything that's going on currently with this whole peace in the Middle East and so forth. And it goes on to say that this is what Al-Qaeda and its affiliates have counted on in the past, and will continue to leverage against us until we wake up. I'm sorry, this article does not this article does not pass the smell test to me whatsoever. Could just be me reaching, could just be me being a quote-unquote fearmongerer, but something about this article just does not sit right with me, again, as we're coming up to a time where they really want this digital ID around the world, not just in the UK. And a mass-scale, multi-city attack would definitely be something to get those gears in motion, especially, like this article said, if something like that would happen during a quote-unquote natural disaster. Let's say an earthquake would break out somewhere in California, a massive one, or on the New Madrid fault that they've been constantly warning us about, and then we get all these attacks everywhere. This would definitely be that straw that broke the camel's back to usher in this beast system within the United States like we've never seen before. And you know what's weird? I don't talk about my faith much on this channel or the biblical aspects of things, but yesterday I prayed. I said, give me a sign, show me a sign, because my discernment was like really going off the charts. Give me a sign. And it's just so odd that this website that I'm very suspicious of was published today, October 13th. And when it comes to the biblical aspects of things, you have some people out there saying that I'm not a Christian, I'm not religious, I don't give my faith to God and stuff like that because I don't talk about the biblical aspects of things. So for those out there that are supposedly Christian that constantly want to baselessly accuse others of not being a Christian and other things should read Exodus 20:16. But I have mentioned scripture many times on this channel, especially when we're talking about Peter Thiel and the Antichrist and these tech giants wanting to live forever and having others live forever with them. And you think of when you read in the Bible, Revelations, where it says that death, people will beg for death, they'll long for death, but death will not come. And that pretty much goes hand in hand with these people that want to live forever through technology. And then you have people building these underground bunkers, these massive underground bunkers, these billionaires. And that goes hand in hand also with Revelation. So yes, there are times on this channel that I have mentioned scripture. I have spoken about knowing that demons do actually exist and what to look out for. Demons are definitely among us. Demons are in our leadership in these governments and so forth. Very evil entities. I mean, how many times have I said that using AI, talking to AI, is pretty much like talking to a demon using a Ouija board? I mean, how can you not see that? They even now have AI pretty much resurrecting the dead and making them do things they have not done before. So I still get accused for not seeing the biblical side of things, which is weird, but it is what it is. But in other news, yesterday there was a very bad crypto crash. Now, as of today, some of it did recover, but it was so bad that one individual ended himself because he lost $65 million of investor money. And it just goes to show just how easy this crypto can crash. As a matter of fact, I made this video 3 weeks ago talking about the Ponzi scheme that is crypto and how we would see a major crash. And what we saw yesterday is nothing for what's to come.
So just 30 minutes before yesterday's record-breaking crypto liquidation, a new account was opened, and this whale was placing shorts up until exactly 1 minute before Trump announced these massive tariff threats against China. And we can see it right over here. The last trade he made was at 2049 GMT, literally 30 seconds before Trump announced the 100% tariffs on all Chinese goods. And this trader closed 90% of his Bitcoin shorts and 100% of his Ethereum shorts, making over $200 million in profits in literally a couple of hours. And here's a breakdown of the entire timeline from the very beginning. So it started off at 9:40 a.m. when crypto mysteriously began selling off. And then around an hour later, Trump posted massive Chinese tariff threats. Now, this wasn't the official tariff announcement. They were just threats at this point, and the crypto market continued to sell off. But then at around 4:30 p.m., the trader we're talking about opened a multi-million-dollar short position, causing the market to take a dump already. But then at around 4:50 p.m., so just 20 minutes after the trader started placing those shorts, Trump announced 100% tariffs on China, and that's where the crypto market completely crashed. And to make things even more interesting, BlackRock reportedly bought 45,000 Bitcoin worth $5 billion at an average price of $105,000 per Bitcoin during the recent flash crash. And this was the absolute bottom of this crash. So what do you think? Was this whole thing just market manipulation, or was it a very strong coincidence and super good timing?
BlackRock was not going to lose any money out of this, but here is the video I made previously showing what's going to happen during this massive rug pull. And again, this came out 3 weeks prior to this massive crypto crash. This video by an individual named Keela. I'm not going to play her video because she pretty much says the same thing I say, but she also said something that connects dots back to a previous event that happened, I believe, last year that most of us stopped talking about. Remember this very bizarre event back in April of 2024 where this individual, Maxwell Azzarillo, lit himself on fire in New York while Trump's court case was going on? Well, around that time, we also found out that he had wrote a manuscript called the Ponzi Papers, and inside this manuscript, he heavily mentions Peter Thiel and his upcoming role.
Hey, want to learn the biggest secret in the world? In March 2023, sketchy billionaire Peter Thiel started a bank run. I did 1,500 hours of research, and I learned all their rotten secrets. The big one is that cryptocurrency is history's first planetary, multi-trillion-dollar Ponzi scheme. That's an economic doomsday device. And when that Ponzi goes insolvent, as all Ponzis must, we'll get the worst economic collapse in world history. And every powerful person you can think of is in on it. Want to know why everything gets worse and more expensive? That's because we live in a secret kleptocracy. That's when the government gets taken over by con artists whose only job is to steal from the public. And I hope you know this is wonderful news, because now that the public knows about the secret kleptocracy, they get to abolish their criminal government. Follow for more, or read this booklet, and you will bend history.
But who was Maxwell Azzarillo? Was he just some random conspiracy theorist on his computer connecting dots? Or perhaps maybe he knew something more? The fact that this is playing out in real time, and the fact that Peter Thiel is gaining more and more power, and the fact that the Ponzi Papers is still up for you to read, they did not take it down, leads me to believe they wanted us to know this because they always have to tell us what they're doing ahead of time. It is how their ritualistic karma system works. So they use this guy that looks like a nutjob conspiracy theorist who lit himself on fire, spill the beans, nobody's going to take him seriously. But if you look into him a little bit further, you can really see he is connected. More than likely, he's possibly some kind of MK Ultra victim, but he's connected in some sort of way. The one-eyed symbolism he kept doing, the free people tongue, it's very obvious what's taking place here. But even though this guy may be an insider, he's not wrong. Peter Thiel is one of the biggest investors of crypto. He made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin and others, so he's one of the biggest investors in crypto. Thiel's venture capital firm made a substantial profit of $1.8 billion on Bitcoin investments before the 2022 market collapse, very interesting, and I'll get into that as to why, and resumed buying Bitcoin and Ether in 2023, and he still continues to do so today. He is one of the biggest investors in crypto, including Bitcoin. But here's the beauty part of everything. Here is the genius of what they did when it came to the Genius Act, because when it came to the Genius Act, they tied the US dollar to the stable coins, to crypto. And what's also interesting is that they have news and media talking about this, releasing these news articles, and we know who news and media is owned and operated by, but we have these news articles talking about what would happen to the US dollar if the cryptocurrency, these stable coins, were to crash. Well, if there was a massive crash of these cryptocurrencies or a massive rug pull, there would also be a massive sell-off of United States bonds, which would decrease the price of the bonds themselves, causing United States interest rates to spike. Reading this article from theconversation.com, which was actually published very recently, September 6th, it goes on to say that a sudden, unexpected, and drastic increases in United States interest rates could easily translate into a global financial crisis, as banks and governments around the world would suddenly face solvency crises. If interest rates go up, mortgage rates go up, and people can barely afford anything now, and who would swoop in and buy up all these properties? Well, none other than Blackstone. If this were to happen, the safest bet would probably be gold, because that would drastically increase, especially if news came out that there was no gold in Fort Knox. And it really makes you wonder whatever happened to the news story about auditing the gold in Fort Knox. Are they waiting for something like this for a cryptocurrency crash, and then they release news, hey, there's no gold in Fort Knox, and then that decreases the dollar even more, perhaps a all-out crash. but that drastically increases the value of gold. That would be absolutely wild if this is what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying this is what's actually happening, because for YouTube reasons only, this video is only for entertainment purposes, but again, that would be absolutely wild. Reset everything and then rebuild anew with a new digital currency backed by these tech giants and the state. But it would not be just the United States, it would be all these governments around the world. It would be a one world digital currency, because if a crash like this were to happen, it would impact all the economies around the world. So this would be a part of that one world government they would want in 2030. Now, do I believe that Peter Thiel is the Antichrist? No, I do not, but it's very obvious that Palantir, this one world digital currency, and so forth will be laying the groundworks, especially when you involve this one world government as well, which I will go ahead and touch on a little bit later on with this whole alien agenda. But just take a look at this. And while this all does sound like doom and gloom, I really found this interesting video off of Barry Stepp's channel, and it really does seem like there is hope for a positive outcome. And again, like I said before, where there is evil, there is definitely good, and I do believe that good will win at the end.
It's a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit. Every nation that signed on to Agenda 21 has its local Agenda 21 plan. People in the United States are completely unaware of this. If I go out and talk about this, the United States press will attacks me and calls me, it's totally ridiculous. But it's not a theory. It's a fact. The three pillars of United Nations Agenda 21 are economy, ecology, and equity, the three E's. And everyone sort of thinks that they know what that means, the idea of social equity. It must mean that, everyone's going to have access to clean water and clean air, and no one's property is going to be used as a dumping ground because they are at a poverty level. But really what social equity is about impoverishing huge portions of the population and bringing down the developed nations. Everything that we're looking at now is destined to collapse our economies. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. And what major corporations want in this development is to be able to have full movement of workers without borders or boundaries, to be able to move their goods through without regulations, and to reduce wages. And so this is the goal. So this is what you find with social equity. And of course, economy and ecology is about, these are the three circles: economy, ecology, and social equity. And where they meet in the center is balance. But really that balance is a communitarian balance. So it's not balance of well-being of the people. What it is it's a balance for corporations so that they can exploit and control and have populations in an area tightly packed, dense areas so that they can be surveilled and managed. And this is what that balance looks like as far as the development of a totalitarian state is. The mainstream media is owned by 5 major corporations, and you're not going to get this information from the mainstream press. So you need to be your own press. You need to educate yourself. You need to get out there and educate your neighbors, your community, your real community. You need to help your children understand that they're being indoctrinated from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate school. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to others. This is true community, to work for personal freedom. And always remember that even though we work as a group, if we do work as a group, we're all individuals in those groups, and we answer only to ourselves. And this is essential. It's essential as free human beings. This is what we are. We are free, and we need to continue to be free. And I do believe that we will win, but we have to become aware that there is a fight, and then make our friends and our neighbors and our community aware as well, and work together.
But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.